A little bit about what a toxic family looks like. So a toxic family is a family that does not want you to be an individual or an autonomous person. So a toxic family is a family that has a particular narrative. There could be one or two people at the helm who are very narcissistic, people that control the narrative. For example, you came from a very troubled childhood. Maybe dad was an alcoholic, or maybe your brother was an alcoholic. And the people who are controlling the narrative are trying to pretend that those things never happened. Maybe mom was highly narcissistic. Maybe she had issues with boyfriends. Maybe she cheated. Maybe you just had it really, really rough because of your parents' immaturity or your parents' trauma. And your parents aren't self-aware people. They think that therapy is for crazy people, so they never looked within. Crazy people, by the way, oftentimes do not go into therapy. It is the people that love crazy people that end up in therapy, by the way. But let's say you come from the type of family where things are really rough for you, but you're not allowed to say that. As an adult, you're not allowed to remind your mother or remind your father of dad's gambling addiction. It never happened. Dad didn't have a gambling issue. You're not allowed to say, my sister has an addiction. No, she doesn't. She was just going through a hard time. There are all of these attempts to invalidate your level of reality or your perception of reality. So this is very common in a toxic family. In a toxic family, it's almost like a cult, like this pack of wolves. And what's happening is the people in the family are being conditioned through fear, although it's not conscious, to go against what the fundamental beliefs are or processes are of the family. And so you're being programmed and you're being conditioned outside of your conscious awareness around what to be afraid of when it comes to this toxic family. So you grew up with the no talk rule, the no think rule. You're not allowed to think, and no feel rule. You're not allowed to feel. You're not allowed to remember. You're not allowed to recall. You're not allowed to talk to your cousins about how I was when I was younger. You're not allowed to tell anybody what I put you through. Nobody. And so it's sort of like this big part of your inner reality has to be lobbed off. The toxic family wants you to erase it from your memory bank, but we all know that we can't erase it, that what happens to us on the outside leaves a lasting impression on the inside. And then if we do not deal with what has happened to us, the effect of these types of experiences, this type of neglect, this type of trauma from a toxic family or a narcissistic mother or father, if we do not deal with, as adult children, the consequences of what happened to us as children, then we pass it on to our children. It gets stuck in our energy body, if you will, and it gets stuck in our physical body. It manifests in different ways. It distorts our thinking. We don't ever really trust ourselves. So when we get into conflict as an adult, many things happen because our reality has been so invalidated as a child. A couple of things can happen when we get triggered as adults. We can want to defend ourselves because we expect that we're going to be invalidated. So we get very defensive, which means I can't listen to my partner. I can't hear what my best friend is saying. I can't take constructive criticism at work. I can't because my trigger is, conflict, I'm going to be invalidated, so I can shut down. So that's a long-lasting effect of this type of narcissistic, toxic, cult-like family trauma. There is a real lasting impression that happens inside of me, inside of my nervous system. And the thing that we have to understand neurologically is that our nervous system is always going to act quicker than our consciousness. That what is below the veil is going to affect us and cause an immediate response, egoic response, a defensive, survival-based response, before we've even had time to think about what's going on. And that's why it's so important to do this emotional recovery work, because what you do not heal, you pass on. So you lived with a narcissistic mother or father who always tried to control you, control your narrative, control what you thought, didn't want you to think a certain way, and then you end up being someone who is in the same boat, you're running parallel. So now you try to control what your toxic family thinks. You try to control what other people think about you, right? So you're running parallel. The defense mechanism is intact for both beings. You just don't realize that you're mirroring your mother or your father's toxic defense mechanism. And this is when good relationships go south. This is when what could have been a really beautiful relationship as an adult child of a dysfunctional family, that's when we push people away. That's when our defense mechanisms are taking control, and we want to be aware of that. So another sign of a toxic family is that you have witnessed enough times where there is a family group chat that happens over a family member that isn't behaving the way the matriarch of the family thinks this family member should have behaved. So you have a family member that goes rogue. They have a party and they only invite a couple of friends over for an afternoon brunch, and the people in your family, this cult-like family, get wind of it, and now everybody's talking crap and smack about this family member that decided to have an event and not invite every single family member. It's like a terrible sin. But you got to understand that the people that are watching this unfold, the other members of the family that are watching how toxic family members will swoop down and try to emotionally manipulate and annihilate and talk smack about this one family member that tried to do something outside the norm or the expectations of a toxic family. That person was ostracized, they were criticized, they were called all sorts of names. And you might be the family member who's like really troubled by this behavior because you know it's wrong. But on another level, you're also afraid of them doing it to you. That's where you're stuck. That's how the manipulation keeps you in play with this toxic family. And if you're not aware of it, and I always say it, if you don't see the hole in the wall, you can't fix it. And so what hurts us as human beings who are trying to grow and develop and expand ourselves, it's the stuff that's unseen. It's the stuff that we can't see that's tripping us up, like what I just said. Like, if you don't realize that you are in a family that is toxic, then you're going to remain in that toxic environment. So it's what you don't know that's keeping you stuck. That's why you should pat yourself on the head, dear one, and give yourself a kudos Medal of Honor today, because you're seeking new information. Remember that people who are stuck do not seek, well, I shouldn't say stuck. There are people who are stuck that still seek information. I would say that the people who are stuck and will remain stuck and never escape are people who don't think they need new information, so they think the way they think is correct. Most toxic people do not think they're toxic. They don't think they're toxic. That's what makes them so toxic. There's no self-reflection. There's no, pray tell, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe this is egotistical of me. Maybe I am being manipulative. Maybe I'm afraid of my daughter's and my son's reality coming online, because then I have to face the kind of mother I actually was. There's none of that. But when you are the adult child and you're being brainwashed to be afraid to think and to confront and act outside the norm, you don't know that. But the minute someone like me, or you read it in a book, or you hear it online, the minute you hear even a friend say, I was stuck for so long and I never realized how my family conditioned me to be afraid to think as a sovereign, independent human being. This is how people control you across the board. A narcissist does not want you to have an authentic, sovereign thought. A narcissist wants you to be afraid of not being what they expect you to be. So we really have to look at this as an opportunity to awaken, as an opportunity to become your own sovereign self. So now we're going to talk about what I want to bring to the light for many of you, because most often when people come through my classes or they email me or I get a YouTube comment, lots of times, and even in the Facebook groups, it's about how to set boundaries with the toxic family. And one of the things that I've come to realize in myself and in people that I love who are dealing with this, and the people that I mentor and coach about this, is that there are things running below the veil, below the surface, that you're not even aware of. Before you can set a boundary with the toxic family, you gotta check yourself. You have to ask yourself, am I expecting to change them? Because you're not going to change them. When I set this boundary, am I willing to accept everything that I'm afraid of happening? Because it's going to happen. They're going to talk about you. They're going to create group chats about you. Like every family function that you don't attend, you will be the topic of conversation. It's just going to happen. Are you willing to accept that? Because that's a natural consequence of coming and being raised in, coming from a toxic family and being raised by a toxic family. So think about it as a ball in motion. You can't change that ball in motion. There's a lot of energy that built up, a lot of momentum. Dear one, it's silly for you to think that you're going to be able to step in front of a moving tornado and stop it. But what you can do is like slide to the left or slide to the right and accept it. Literally let the tornado of all the toxicity and all the chit chat and all the narcissism and the codependency, because you're going to have flying monkeys in that tornado that are afraid of what the main narcissists have to say. Let it pass you by. Just let it pass you by. Turn to whoever you can trust in your life and start building a new life outside of this. And trust me when I tell you, you will break free. So you have to ask yourself, like, am I prepared to accept what is going to happen when I step out, when I say enough is enough? If you are ready for that, then by all means, set a boundary, go no contact if you have to. But when you go no contact with a toxic family member, you really have to understand what will trip you up. And it will be your unconscious beliefs. It will be this toxic cycle that you're in. You may have been like I was the person in the family that knew so much of this was wrong. And I tried to change my brother. I tried to change my sister. I tried to enlighten my sister. I tried to enlighten my brother. I tried to enlighten my mom. I even tried to enlighten my dad. Bunch of waste of my time. You can't turn on someone's enlightenment switch for them. They have to evolve into that. And let's face it also, not every soul born is designed to leave the planet more enlightened than when they came in. They're just not. Not every soul can, but not every person has the tenacity or the willingness to look within. They just don't hear the call. And it's for people who feel this draw to change and evolve and what's wrong with me and identify what's keeping me stuck. Those are the people that are, in my opinion, are pushing consciousness forward, because you can't move forward unless you look within. So you want to understand that toxic people are generally not looking within. Can you accept that, dear one? Can you accept that when you say, I don't like the way you talk to me, they don't think they're talking to you inappropriately? That's just the way they talk. When you say, I don't want you to manipulate me, can you accept that they don't think they're manipulating you? When you say, I don't like how you talk about this person and that person, it's wrong, can you accept that they don't think that they're doing anything wrong? This is the only data that your toxic family has. Can you accept that when you say to your toxic mom or your toxic dad, the way that you raised me, really hurt me? Can you accept that the degree to the level of narcissism that your parents have, their defense mechanism can't hear you? And they're going to want to squash any attempt that you are making that will cause them to feel guilt, remorse, or vulnerability. Can you accept that? Can you accept that narcissists are wired to not hear you? They're not introspective. They are not emotionally mature. They don't have the ability to withstand what would happen energetically and psychologically in their being if they were to really look at the horrors or the traumas that their immaturity and their narcissism and their selfishness inflicted on you. Their system can't tolerate it because their entire psychological system is built on denial. It never happened. You're crazy. You had a wonderful childhood. What's wrong with you? So can you accept that that is their narrative? Because if you can't accept it, then you're really going to struggle with being able to set a boundary. Try to understand that you have been conditioned to be afraid to set a boundary. Now let's understand a little bit about what you need to do. So before you set a boundary, you want to really ask yourself these questions. Am I willing to accept what's going to happen and accept that I can't control it? Am I willing to sidestep this and just give everybody permission to say whatever they want? You have to think about a narcissistic family like a tornado. At least I do, it helps me. Think about them this way. Is it physically possible for me to stop a tornado because of the momentum? Absolutely not. So is it physically or realistically possible for you to stop toxic people, especially a bunch of them? Think about all their own little vortex. Think about that. Is it realistic for you to think that you can say, stop talking about me, and they're going to listen to you? No, probably not. Are you willing and are you ready to accept that and surrender to that? If you are willing to accept, and I'm telling you, it feels like namaste, I'm going to walk away, I feel it, it's totally okay. It feels like a release, like, I really can accept this. That happened for me when I realized I can't change them. And they're going to do exactly what I was always afraid they were going to do. Say that I was crazy, I had a hormonal imbalance, whatever it was. I've always been selfish, blah, blah, blah. The narrative was the same. And when I just stopped trying to pretend that that narrative wasn't true, this sudden peace came over me like, okay, just do what you got to do, dear one. Go do what you got to do, toxic family. Go ahead, go talk about me. Go ahead, make me the crazy one. What helped me also understand that was that toxic families lack empathy. So they lack the ability for a family member to look at another family member and say, I see you. I see why you feel this way. I understand where you're coming from. And I'm so sorry you're going through this. Toxic families don't do that. Whenever you say, I think, I feel, they go, you're crazy. That never happened. What's wrong with you? When you get to the point when you are truly at a state of surrender and acceptance, that's when you can start to walk away. You can go no contact. You can say, listen, even if you tell them I'm setting up a boundary and they're like, what boundary? You're crazy. You don't need a boundary. You're nuts. It's all you. You're too sensitive. Even if that happens, you still say, namaste, I hear you. I see you. And you still behave as if there's a boundary in place. You don't expect them to honor your boundary. That's not how this works. I think that there's a really big misconception out there that people think that people have to honor your boundaries. No, dear one, you are the only person that has to honor your boundary. So if I tell my narcissistic mother that you cannot come to my house unannounced, and she comes to my house unannounced, I don't answer the door. I don't answer the door. If she comes to my house unannounced, or if she does anything that I've asked her not to do, I don't feed into it. If I tell my narcissistic mother, don't call me before 10 a.m. in the morning, and she calls me at 8 a.m., I don't answer the phone. If my narcissistic mother demands that I do X, Y, and Z, I don't do it. I just don't show up. You see, it's not about them. It's about you. You have to be willing to follow through with that boundary. And so lots of times when we come from toxic families, we complain about their behavior. And we think that, by talking to them and talking to them and talking to them, telling them, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You're violating my boundaries. You're disrespecting me. They're like, what are you talking about? You're violating your own boundary, dear one, because you're giving up your power to a family that is built to keep this family structure just the way it is. So if there's a family member that we enable, if there's a bunch of denial going on, that is part of their system. And they're going to use those defense mechanisms for denial, and they're going to minimize you, and they're going to tell you they're crazy just to keep you in that cycle. So it's up to you to say, I see it, I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore, and for you to follow through with the boundary. The other thing that you want to ask yourself is like, so you got to be ready, you got to be prepared, and you got to accept it. The other thing is that you have to ask yourself, am I trying to change them the way they're trying to change me? That's very sobering. For me, when I realized like, oh my God, like they're trying to change the way I see things and I'm trying to change the way they see me, I was like, holy Hannah, I'm done with that. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my, I don't want to be toxic. I don't want to be a parallel of them. And so it was like, just stop trying to change them. Accept them. Now, accepting them doesn't mean that you like their behavior. It just means that you are finally realizing, which is a true emotional growth spurt, it's not your job to change them. It's not your job to fix them. It's your job to see them. I always say this about the zoo. You know why they label the zoo exhibits lion, tiger, and bear? So you know how to behave before you walk into that den. It's the same thing with the toxic family. You have to literally look at each member of your family and you have to decide, is this a laughing hyena? Is this a lion that's going to tear my head off? Is this a bear that's going to claw my face off? Is this a snake that's going to suffocate me? Like, what am I walking into? Why? So that you can curtail your behavior. Really important stuff. I will also say that the other thing that we want to think about is that if you are aching over this, you really want to, that's the most tender part of you, right? Like I keep a picture of my inner child on my desk, and it's a constant reminder that that's who I need to protect. And it's a constant reminder that that's who toxic people try to destroy. It is the most tender, most innocent, most gut instinct part of me that needs to be honored by some higher part of me, my higher consciousness, or the parent within. So I have to stand up for my inner child. Because when you come from a toxic home, it does help you to realize that the inner part of you is being violated. It's being annihilated. You don't matter when you're talking to a toxic mom. I hate to say that, but it's true. Your inner child, their reality is irrelevant to a narcissistic dad. I hate to tell you that, but it's true. Now, I want to also say this is very hard to do, to say goodbye to a toxic family or to limit contact with a toxic family, because it is so DNA. It's in your DNA. It doesn't matter if your mom was a narcissist or your dad was a narcissist or an alcoholic or incarcerated or did terrible, terrible things or had a mental health issue. It doesn't matter to your nervous system. Your nervous system, your DNA wants to be loved by these people. It is tribal. Think about it. Our earliest ancestors would have never survived if they didn't bond, if they didn't stick together. So you want to give yourself a break. Okay, we're not, walking around in the jungle. Most of us these days are not doing that. And most of our basic needs are being met. Most of us have running water. Most of us have a bathroom. Most of us have a refrigerator. Most of us are able to get here and there. Most of us have enough food not to die in a day. I mean, our basic needs are pretty much met. Would we like more? Sure. But we are in our early ancestors, but we want to understand that our brains are still that primitive in a way, meaning that you're always going to want to feel loved by a narcissistic mom. It is the hardest thing in the world, or one of the hardest things in the world. Let's be realistic. There are a lot of many hard things in the world, but one of the hardest things in the world for a feeling human being is to say no more when it comes to a toxic family. You want to give yourself a break. You want to be gentle about this. This is why this work is work when I'm doing this type of letting go work, which is really accepting and surrendering work. I am dealing with the energy of my inner child. I'm speaking to her. I know this is so hard for you. I know you love your mom. I know you love your dad. I know more than anything you want to be loved by your brother and your sister. More than anything, you want to feel like you have this amazing family. I know, dear one, this must be so hard for you. I know how hard it is for you. But we still have to do this work. We have to rise above the veil. We can't operate from the world of feelings forever. We have to operate in the realm of what is. We have to exercise some conscious logic and reason here. We have to walk up and out of the subconscious mind. We have to learn to accept what is, no matter how painful. And we have to begin to choose the self. Now, I also want to encourage you, because as daunting as this part of your journey is, and I know that it's daunting because I went through it. I went no contact with my parents for a year, my whole family for a year. And I can tell you it was like ripping off my skin. It felt so unnatural, but something clicked. And I knew that I needed to escape it, because when I was around them, I reverted back to their version of me. It was crazy. It's resonance. And so I knew that in order for me to become my true self, this was part of my journey. I had to let them go. I had to individuate, which is what Carl Jung talks about, and even Joseph Campbell talks about. I had to leave the tribe. I had to wrestle with the demons they left me with, self-doubt. I had to do all the shadow work, all the codependency recovery work, all the seeking of approval work, and all of the needing validation work. Like I had to work through that before I could truly live above the veil of consciousness, forgive myself for all of these behaviors that were not my fault, before I could be my true self. Now, once you make that transition, you are accepting of what is, you let people talk about you, you give them permission, all of that, right? Once you're out of that, let's say a year, 2 years, and the further you are out of it, let's say you're out of that toxic loop 5 years, I promise you the transformation that you will have in that period of time is going to blow your mind. Because the only way that you can find and discover your true meaning for life, for why you were born, is through sloughing off what is holding you back from being your true self. A toxic family doesn't want you to be your true self. They don't want you to be your true self. You have to really, really see that. And then you have to be patient with the process, because this is a psychological, unraveling of the old into the new. But I promise you that if you stick with this journey, you will find your true self. You will feel called to your specific mission. You will know why you are here, and it will be so much easier for you to follow it. I've wanted to be a writer since I was 7 years old. I've wanted to help people since I was 7 years old. I could not line up with that until I let go of my toxic marriage, and I started to put my toxic family where they needed to be mentally and emotionally in my life. And with the toxic relationship gone, with the toxic family set aside, I was able to accept that I always wanted to be a writer. So I started a blog years and years and years ago, when there was no fancy website development. It was just blogger.com. And then I created a website. Before there was GoDaddy, I created a website. And I started honoring myself bit by bit by bit. And suddenly I was writing at 2 o'clock in the morning, my first book, The Road Back to Me. So I want you to understand, and I digress way too often here, but I wrote The Road Back to Me, then I got it published, then I wrote another book and another book and another book, and now I'm writing 2 additional books that should be out by the end of the year. But my point is this, you have to understand why you're doing this, because the toxic family is preventing you from living out your true authentic destiny. And as long as you're fighting for other people to change, you can't get there, dear one. As long as you're begging other people to see you, you can't see yourself, dear one. As long as you are wounded by people seeing you through their faulty lens, you can't honor what's truly in you, dear one. So understand that this is a true sacred journey. This isn't just some session about toxic families and, well, poor me. That's not what this is about. I want you to understand the arc of transformation here. I want you to truly understand the power you have to change your life and why you should confront how you feel about your toxic family. I hope this has been helpful. Namaste. as I bow to the love and light that is absolutely in you, and I will see you on the other side, above the veil of consciousness. You got this.
Hey, if you love this content, don't forget to check out the next video, and you can go to my website and take the codependency quiz.